Hey everyone, just a quick note before we get started on today's video. So it turns out, just as I was putting the finishing touches on this thing, Night Dive Studios released a social media post that announced all sorts of new updates in a new patch. I've decided not to change anything because ultimately it doesn't really affect the preview at all, but just a heads up that some of the things you see here may not be present in the version you end up playing later. Context. It's important. Anyways, enjoy the video. Night Dive Studios have quickly developed a permanent place on my gaming radar. When I was researching them for our Quake 2 video, I noticed that they had announced a remaster for another FPS classic, Star Wars Dark Forces, and I immediately knew I was going to make a video about it. I was close to picking up the new Battlefront collection instead, and hoo boy did I apparently dodge a laser blast on that one. My own memories of Dark Forces were a little hazy, but I did put some time into it on PS1 and Steam a long time ago. And the memories I did have were positive, mostly because I remembered it as Star Wars Doom. Coming back to it, was that a fair or even accurate description of the game? Well, it turns out there was more to this game than my nostalgia was giving credit for. So in the interest of getting more videos made for the channel and in having another reason to try out this 3-hour preview format, let's look at Night Dive Studios' latest release, Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered. Dark Forces Remastered puts you in the shoes of former Imperial officer turned rebel Kyle Katarn. The game starts you off right before the events of A New Hope, and then moves the timeline up to right before The Empire Strikes Back. Following a structure of gameplay similar to id titles such as Doom and Quake, you'll blast your way through 14 missions of gameplay, each with their own objectives to fulfill. And of course, along the way, you'll encounter plenty of weapons, characters, foes, and droids from the franchise circa 1996. Night Dive has included a lot of extras and features to this remaster. Remastered cutscenes, graphics, and even sound work. Although you can toggle those kinds of extras on and off, which is a nice touch for nostalgia heads and people who feel like seeing the comparison. There's also lots of behind the scenes material like concept art and development clips, and they're all available right out of the gate. But as easy as it can be to get lost in that kind of thing, there's a full-ass game here to play. Let's jump in and see what we're dealing with.
Very impressive, General. The Emperor will be most pleased. Continue with your project.
Starting off, we're taken right into the classic Star Wars title crawl, complete with a remastered version of the Star Wars theme. One of the things I noticed right away was the decision to use the remastered version of the PC theme instead of, say, a more modern composition. So both the Star Wars tone and the retro tone as a whole are established pretty quickly. Following that, we're treated to a nice big title card along with the end credits. Well, gotta respect the artists, especially after this past year. So I sat like a trooper and watched the credits roll from top to bottom. After that, we finally get the option to press A and enter the main menu. From here, we can just jump right into Mission 1, or check things out like basic options, game enhancements, and the vault, which I decided to give a bit of a look before jumping headfirst into the game itself. There's actually quite a bit to see here. Not quite as much as the Quake 2 remaster had, but still more than enough to satisfy fans of both the original Dark Forces and people interested in game design. They even included the original demo that was shown at conventions at the time. Very nice stuff. But enough distractions. There's stormtroopers to blast. After a quick rundown of the mission from Mon Mothma, it's time to steal the Death Star plans. Which is some serious fucking Bothan erasure, but I guess it's happened more than once at this point. Anyways, the first mission does a great job of getting you accustomed to the game and its mechanics. You start out with a single-shot blaster, but it won't take you more than a few seconds to pick up a standard-issue beam rifle that will likely become your main weapon moving forward. At least for the first number of missions. Right away, you can see the polish being applied to this remaster. The enemies are still digitized sprites, but the improved visuals really make each enemy pop off the screen. The same thing goes for the level textures. No ground-up revamping to the visuals, just a nice clean look free of any rough pixelation or blockiness. The gameplay itself feels great too. Shooting and aiming both feel smooth, and there was never a moment in my playthrough where I felt like the controls were holding me back. While I spent almost all my first hour wielding the rifle, the automatic fire and smooth controls, I played this one on the Xbox One X, made shooting down enemies an absolute joy. And of course the patented Star Wars. Then of course there's the cutscenes. You can see the detailed artwork and models in each scene, but they still manage to capture that mid-90s PC game feel. It's updated for sure, but this still feels like a classic extended universe Star Wars game, and that feeling is appreciated. Another thing I noticed early on was the incorporation of features such as a map that can be pulled up at any time at the press of a button. There are also items like a headlight for dark areas and a pair of infrared goggles that both have a limited battery life. It did not take long to realize that these items are not a suggestion from the original developers. You really need them to navigate certain parts of the map and find a lot of the hidden secrets in each level. This includes secrets that weren't too obvious to me at first, but I started to notice more and more at the end of the first hour. So far, so good. I'm about 3 missions deep, and I am loving it so far. But I'm already itching for some new weaponry. Not long into the second hour, I finally experienced death for the first time. And this is where I start to actually notice the respawn and live system. Unlike Quake 2, which gives you quick autosaves and autoloads, Dark Forces Remastered instead uses the original game's live system. You'll quickly respawn nearby after death, but after a set number of lives, you'll need to restart the entire mission over. That said, you will get to keep your health stats and ammo from when you originally started the mission. For better or worse. It's definitely an adjustment if you're used to any FPS that has quick or near infinite respawns, but it does admittedly hold some extra challenge that hasn't felt unfair so far. I did enjoy that the stages didn't just stick to the standard stormtroopers and imperial officers for enemy types. As things progressed, I fought droids, alien prisoners, garbage monsters, and even those annoying little training spheres from A New Hope. You also get small additions to later stages, such as ceiling-mounted turrets and landmines, which made me reconsider my run headfirst into a room and shoot everything that's not me strategy. I also started to finally get some new weapons to add to my so far meager arsenal. I guess there is an upside to that since it helps each new pickup feel a little extra satisfying. Plus it gave me proper time to try out each new weapon. With the additional weapons like the Imperial Repeater Gun and the Fusion Cutter, I realized that there are several ammo types instead of just the energy packs of the Beam Rifle and Blaster. The weapon wheel from Quake 2 Remaster also makes a reappearance here, and it still feels great to use. Also toggling on and off auto run, which took me a few minutes to figure out after turning it on by accident. Core items were mapped to the face buttons, but what was sorely missing for me was that compass feature. The deeper I went into this game, the more I felt I really could have used it. 2 hours in now, and the levels are starting to feel longer and a lot more challenging. Which, yes, is a standard for almost any game, but the real challenge for me came from the game's puzzles. The first few missions each featured some kind of switch puzzle, but once you get into areas like the detention center, the combo of switches, elevators, laser barriers, and secret codes all help create an experience much different from a simple running gun. But of course, that's also what the mission objective and inventory screens are for. Now the game does tell you what to do, but there were still some sections that took me longer to figure out than others. Though regardless of any of this, the game is still fun to play. The cutscenes also tell a pretty decent Star Wars story. I really do miss the days of the Star Wars extended universe. People used to get a lot more excited when Boba Fett showed up. Having a larger arsenal to choose from also helped me click to a mechanic that I hadn't really noticed up until now. Some weapons, not all, but some, have a secondary fire. Since my beam rifle and the starting weapon didn't have a second fire option, I didn't pick up on this at first. But other weapons like the repeater gun and the fusion cutter have a second fire as well. I could have probably figured this out sooner if I bothered to look at the controls beforehand, but hey, sometimes you just gotta feel things out on your own. Although I'll admit this detention center is starting to make me consider looking up a guide.
You're not on.
I've put another hour in the Dark Forces Remastered since starting on this video, and I can honestly say that I'll be putting some more time in after that. I admit some of the game design had me feeling like I was fumbling around in the dark at times, but when I finally figured out a way through, I never once cried bullshit at the solution. I had to adjust my initial approach of just running and shooting, but when the game opens up and becomes more of a blend of puzzle and shooter, there's still a fun time to be had with everything on offer. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll probably like it. If you're a Star Wars and Doom or Quake fan, you'll definitely love it. And if you love both of those things and love mid-90s PC games, you'll probably go apeshit over this one. I've been reading that this game takes around 8 to 10 hours to finish, and I could see myself taking a bit longer to figure out some of those later puzzles. The combat itself hasn't been that difficult so far. At medium difficulty anyway. In true Star Wars fashion, I was in more threat from a ceiling turret or a landmine than I ever was from a room full of stormtroopers. But the fun of mowing through actual platoons of stormtroopers with ease was one of the best parts of the game for me. Night Dive Studios have done an excellent job with this remaster. I did feel like I hit a wall a few times, but it always felt more like a skill issue. A little more time with the game, and I don't see that being such a problem. In Canada, Dark Forces Remaster is currently going for around $40, but I imagine this will likely be part of some Star Wars themed sale down the road. Hey, there we go. I played it on Xbox, but PlayStation and PC users can play this one as well. If you're looking for a new Star Wars release, and don't want to deal with whatever the hell's going on with the Battlefield collection right now, you can't go wrong with Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered. Hey everyone, thanks for watching and for sticking it out until the end of the video. We've got a lot more on the way we're really excited to share with you, and until then, if you want to help us out, you can do the usual YouTube things. Liking, commenting, subscribing, all of it really helps us out. And let us know what you thought about Dark Forces Remastered in the comments below. Until next time, this has been Tim from Haruokay. Stay tuned.